The earliest concentration camp that was opened was Dachau, inside of the Third Reich, and within this camp there was a huge amount of terror and torture. Prisoners were subjected to terrifying treatment on a daily basis, and the guards were also trained executioners who would not hesitate but to take someone's life. There were a number of female prisoners who had been spies, landed by the British inside of France to work with the French resistance, and these women worked as part of Special Operations Executive. But 4 female spies found themselves locked up inside of Dachau for their espionage and crimes, and one of these, who was ruthlessly executed, was Elaine Plewman. But what did she do, and what happened with her execution? To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Elaine Sophie Bartholdi was born in December 1917 inside of France. She was educated in England and in Spain, and when she finished college, she moved to the exotic location of Leicester to work for an import and export company, and she used her language skills to speak with many different suppliers and traders. But as the Second World War broke out, Elaine, who had got married, and who was known as Elaine Plewman from then, worked in the press section of the British embassies in Madrid and Lisbon, before she returned to Britain to work in the Ministry of Information. In February 1943, she joined Special Operations Executive, and she was trained as an agent in the field. She signed the Official Secrets Act, and she was very small, just over 5 feet tall, and she trained like the men would. She learned weapons training and handling, hand-to-hand combat, and other skills such as sabotage and espionage, as well as radio communications and transmission. She learned how to kill with and without a weapon, and also how to handle explosives, and she was prepared for a life behind enemy lines. Elaine Plewman was on board a Handley Page Halifax after 2 failed attempts on nights before to land due to bad weather, and she finally parachuted out of the bomber aircraft on the evening of the 13th of August 1943. Elaine Plewman was given the cover name Elaine Prunier, and she had a number of other code names. She worked for the organisers of SOE's Monk Circuit of Spies, and she was acting as a courier of intelligence in the region of Marseille. It was claimed that she was dropped in the Jura and was separated from her circuit for some time. Instead of remaining in hiding, she showed outstanding initiative and made several contacts on her own, which were later of great value to her circuit. For 6 months, Plewman worked as a courier, and her untiring devotion to duty and willingness to undergo any risk largely contributed to the successful establishment of her circuit. She travelled constantly, maintaining liaison between the various groups, acting as a guide to newly arriving agents, and transporting wireless telegraphy equipment and compromising documents. Her brother was also even serving as an SOE agent too, but her network of spies soon crumbled. Her organiser was arrested in Marseille as the Gestapo raided a safe house. The Germans left agents behind in the apartment to seize anyone who came, and the following day Elaine Plewman and a wireless operator came to the apartment and she was seized. She rang the doorbell despite suspicions that the house had been compromised, and 2 Germans opened the door and then took her in and arrested her. She was then taken to the Gestapo headquarters and was interrogated for roughly a month before she was then sent to the Fresnes prison. In May 1944, she was then sent to Germany and was one of 8 women and female spies who had been arrested, and she was imprisoned inside of the Karlsruhe prison. But on the evening of September the 11th, 1944, Elaine Plewman, Madeleine Dammerment and Yolanda Berkman were collected by the Gestapo from the prison, and they were then taken to Munich. They were then sent on to the Dachau concentration camp, the first site that opened inside the Third Reich, and they arrived around the 12th of September. Dachau was a place where there was immense torture, and different devices such as the standing cells were used to inflict suffering and pain onto inmates, and executions took place at Dachau on a daily basis, with many being sent to the shooting range nearby. But on the 13th of September, Elaine Plewman and 3 other SOE agents were executed. They were taken from their cells inside Dachau and were forced to kneel in pairs before they were executed by a Nazi executioner, who it's believed was Wilhelm Ruppert, within the barbed wire fences of Dachau. A Gestapo man had witnessed the executions and the final moments of Elaine Plewman's life. He later claimed at trial that the 4 prisoners had come from the barracks in the camp, where they had spent the night, into the yard where the shooting was to be carried out. Here he, Wassermann, had announced the death sentence to them. Only the lager commandant, the most senior member of the camp, and the 2 SS men had been present. The German-speaking Englishwoman, the major, had told her companions of this death sentence. All 4 had grown very pale, and they wept. The major asked whether they could protest against the sentence. The commandant declared that no protest could be made against the sentence. The major had then asked to see a priest. The camp commandant refused this on the grounds that there was no priest within the camp. The 4 prisoners now had to kneel with their heads towards a small mound of earth, and they were then killed by the 2 SS, one after another, by a shot through the back of the neck. This was known as Genickschuss, or neck shooting. During the shooting, the 2 Englishwomen held hands, and the 2 Frenchwomen likewise. For 3 of the prisoners, the first shot caused death, but for the German-speaking Englishwoman, it's believed Beckman, a second shot had to be fired, as she still showed signs of life after the first shot. This is known as a coup de grace gunshot, finishing her off. After the shooting of these prisoners, the lager commandant said to the 2 SS men that he took a personal interest in the jewellery of the women, and that this should be taken into his office. It's presumed that the commandant then stole the jewellery of those executed female spies. Elaine Plewman's fate is remembered today in a number of different memorials, and she was posthumously awarded the King's Commendation for brave conduct during World War II for services in France during the enemy occupation. She is remembered as a brave spy who was willing to help liberate the nation of her birth, and in working with the French resistance. Because she could speak French and also English very well, she was an ideal spy to serve during World War II, but it was not long before she fell into the hands of her enemies, shortly after she parachuted behind enemy lines bravely into France. But Plewman was subjected to a harrowing and brutal execution inside the walls of Dachau concentration camp. She was one of the 4 women that evening who were executed in a ruthless and harrowing manner. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. And once again, thank you so much for watching.